Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned, we stay on the topic of booking. So it's not the easiest case in artificial intelligence, but it's possible to use AI very efficient in it. Driving loyalty by intent-driven search is our topic. And I'm pleased to welcome Anna Jaffe, the CEO of Mobi AI, and Harriet Brown, the head of product from Mobi. Harriet, Anna, stage is yours in a few seconds. So please enjoy.
Are you going to go with it?
Hey, again. Oh.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Really excited to be here at ITB. We all dream about going on vacation, right? I'm thinking about where I want to take my children when school ends in a few months. But 60% of people, when they start planning their trip, don't actually know where it is that they want to go. But it's really easy to describe the type of trip that you want to take or the things, experiences that you want to have when you're there. So how do we help you bridge that gap? People are turning to generative AI to solve this problem. So according to a recent Focusrite survey, 50% of people are using generative AI to start planning their trips, and 56% of travelers have already started using it to research flights, hotels, and experiences. And what's really exciting is, as we have seen coming out of COVID, that people are booking directly with suppliers more often. They want these capabilities embedded into supplier websites. People have started experimenting with using generative AI for search and discovery on their own websites, but they're finding that LLMs alone can be problematic. The first concern that they have is accuracy. Nobody wants to hallucinate a wrong search result. LLMs are fundamentally predictive models. They're really, really good at producing answers that sound correct, but when you fact check them, are actually incorrect. Another concern is the cost to run these models. If your website is getting a lot of traffic, which hopefully it is, they can be really, really expensive, and that's hard if you can't prove the ROI of the solution that you have put in place. And finally, there are concerns about model ownership. Do you want your data being used to improve somebody else's model? Mobi has taken a different approach to offering natural language search for suppliers. We use a generative AI model, language model, for the thing that it is really good at, and that is understanding what it is that the person is searching for. But we don't use it for the actual search part of the problem. We use other AI tools and techniques, branches of AI that come from planning, reasoning, and recommendations. And why this is so important is, on your supplier website, what you are really trying to do is to match what it is that the person is looking for what it is that you want to sell and promote. You need to be able to control the ranking of the results to promote the things that are beneficial for you to sell. And finally, Mobi has invested heavily in building a travel-relevant content store. We have over 40 million points of interest where we have taken many, many different data sets, layered them all together so that we can understand what is interesting about the world that you're looking for. And what this does is really create a fingerprint of every place around the world. If you think about a hotelier may really understand what's inside the four walls of their hotel, but they're not going to understand what is outside. What is walking distance? What is driving distance? Where can you go on a day trip? And those are the types of experiences that travelers are really looking for. And Mobi can bring that with our content store. I want to show you a little bit of what I mean when I say intent-driven search, right? What does this actually look like? This is a demo site that we have, and I can ask a question which is really relevant for the type of trip that I want to take. So if I think about my next vacation and I say I want to go somewhere that's a short flight from Boston, where I live, where I can wear shorts in April and float in the water with a cocktail while my kids have fun zip lining, we can derive all of the different intents, things about the climate, things about the amenities of the property and the results nearby, as well as logistical constraints, things like the flights piece, and find hotels in this example that will meet my requirements. And so now Anna is going to share with us a little bit about how you can actually bring these experiences to life. I think that's the first question that we get from our partners when we talk to them is, okay, cool, you've sold me on natural language search, but what is a strategy for actually deploying this in my world? And so Anna's really excited to share more with you about that.
Awesome. Yeah, this is fun. Usually when we get on stage, we just have a few minutes, and so you get only to talk about sort of the sexy, smooth things, and you don't get to talk as much about the how or the why or the sort of process of getting up and live and doing it in a way where at every step you have buy-in from all the people, right? Like the big challenge with search is that core.com search is a sacred, we sometimes talk about it as a religious space. People don't like to touch it. People have spent years optimizing it, right? And so doing anything to it comes with real risk. And as a result, it can take a ton of effort to get everyone in the org, right? To get marketing, digital, finance, everyone aligned and excited about moving forward. So when we're working with a partner, we always think about how can you do it in a way that is absolutely minimum risk, but also absolutely maximum reward, right? If it's min risk, no reward, no one's going to be excited, no one's going to be aligned, and you're going to burn a bunch of time. If it's high risk, high reward, if anyone starts to say no, you're going to get stuck, right? Like you might not succeed. So we have 3 pieces of strategy that we always with a partner. The first one is every company we work with has, tens, in some cases, hundreds of millions of guests, right? Like they're incredibly lucky. We'd love to have tens of millions of customers. We definitely don't. And a big chunk of those guests just aren't that active. Maybe they haven't traveled for a year. Maybe they have some points. They haven't spent them. And so we look at ways to start with that group. And the second is we really think about what are the hero use cases? Who are the humans that are going to love this thing when they touch and feel it? Once they've experienced it, they're going to talk to their friends, they're going to spend more money, and they're really going to benefit from what you've delivered to them. And then the third piece is some people have talked about blowing up the 4 search boxes. That may happen. We talk about natural language search as a 5th box, right, as a new entry point. It doesn't mean you necessarily need to throw away the thing you've built. It just means that you're going to add something new, and you're going to learn about how it works. So this graph is an example of how we think about starting by engaging the silent, right? So if you look at it, the x-axis is trips per year. Right, so you're going to have a bunch of customers who maybe they haven't traveled with you for a year, they haven't traveled with you for 2 years. You have their email, you have their, maybe you have their phone number, you could reach out to them. You've got a lot of people in that space. Maybe it's a third of your customers. You have sort of a middle segment that has traveled with you in the last year. And then for most of the companies we work with, they have a small number of people who deliver a majority of their revenue. If it's an airline, right, like these are the people who are going to pay $5,000 for a business seat. Or these are the people, if you're a hotel, who are going to travel with you more than 100 nights a year. So those are your special people, right? Just like that .com site is your religious sacred site. The customers that travel with you all the time, those are the last people you're going to experiment on. So we start on that left segment. The magic of starting there is that it's both incredibly low risk and incredibly high reward. And it doesn't look like it would be high reward, right? It looks like if you took the integral under the little revenue line, there's not a lot of money there. But the magic is, if you look at all those humans, you're guaranteed to have a group of them that if you were to inspire them, if you were to show them a different side of who you are and how you operate and how you engage, you could move them over to the other side of the graph. And for some of the companies that we work with, if you can get even a sliver of the left side to move to the right, it's $1 billion of revenue. So it's a thing that you can do safely, right, without risking revenue, while going after a huge positive impact. For some of the partners we work with, instead of starting with digital, we start inside their loyalty programs. We think it's one of the best ways to start with a partner. When someone's traveling and they're burning points, they tend to start with a more open search, right? I want to go somewhere where I can spend 100,000 points. Maybe I want to be like Harriet and I want to stick my toes in the water. I don't have kids, so I wouldn't need to travel with them. But you're kind of curious, right? Like, what's the very best thing that I could get for the number of points that I have, and where could I do that? Maybe you have a couple ideas, right? I want to go to northern Italy. I want to go to southern France. I want to go somewhere in the Caribbean. I want to see a turtle. Whatever it might be. Here, if you look at the graph, now we have time since the last booking, right? You've got a segment of people who've accumulated maybe 90 to 250,000 points. Not so many points that these people at some point in time were deeply loyal to you. Not so few points that they can't go anywhere, right? Like, you want them, this first touch, you want them to have a really good search experience. And so we start with them. We start with the sort of 90 to 250,000 point people, and we start with the people who maybe haven't traveled with you for a year or for 2 years, right? It's still a huge chunk of customers. You don't have to start with all of them on day one. You can start with a small fraction of them. But you have the same massive upside, right? You burn a little bit of the liability of points by getting the person to use them. And if you can teach them that your tools are truly going to help them meet their needs, if you can show them through your tools a side of your brand that they didn't understand, you have a real opportunity to move them to the side of the graph that you really want them to be on. Another thing that we talk with partners about a lot when we're going live with natural language search is who's going to love this thing, right? When you first talk about it, when you send them the first email, when you post your first ad, right? Like, who are the humans that are going to engage, and when they engage, they're going to find something that they couldn't find any other way. So if you look at this graph, you'll see there are a whole bunch of user groups that love this style of search and have a whole bunch of finicky requirements that they really cannot express through any traditional means. You have the people who love deals and discounts, right? They're like, I want to fly to this place. I want to bring 5 bags and my 2 kids and my cat, and I have maximum $200. Tell me how. You have the experience-led traveler, right? Someone who's looking to find something in the world of a particular type. Surprisingly, you have the retired community. One of the things that we've learned in testing is this group travels a ton. So when you're thinking about low risk, high reward, they're really, really valuable travelers. And they tend to travel and then come back and start planning. And so they're really willing to describe what they're looking for and describe in a ton of detail what they want. So we really encourage our partners to be thoughtful about not just how they code that core search experience, not just what the search results look like or what the detail view looks like, but how they introduce the technology, how they prompt people, and who they invite through the door at the start. There's 2 other magics of natural language search that tie into the reward. So today, when you think about traditional search, when someone's finished a query, all you know is where they want to go, when they want to travel, and maybe how many people are going with them. In natural language search, the person tells you more. So let's say someone told you, I want to go skiing somewhere in Europe. I want Michelin food. I want to stay at the 4 Seasons. You return results back to them. You're a hotel or you're an airline. They book the hotel. They book the flight. They book a piece of this. And then they forget that they told you all these other things. And so the magic here is sort of twofold. The first piece of the magic is, if the doorbell rings and they get up and they leave, or someone calls them on their phone, they close the search window, you know these things to bring them back in, right? You can say, hey, we did all this work for you. And you can invite them back through the door with information that really causes them to engage, right? Open the email, and then maybe even open the next email that you send them. The second piece is, in the search, almost all the time, you have a piece of intent that isn't flight, that isn't hotel. Maybe if you're an experience provider, it's even something you sell. And so you have the opportunity to use that and to bring it back to the customer when they don't engage, and to bring them back into your world. When we think about natural language search, it means that we don't just think about the impact of search, but we think about the impact of all of the information that the person is sharing with you about who they are in that moment in time for that trip, and how you can use it to really build a differentiated experience and drive more value from the customer. So this is that same graph that you saw before of who are the people who might love this thing, but it's layering on all of the actions that you can take on top of that core search to really deliver value. One of the magics, I think the title of this talk was dynamic packaging, right? Flights, hotels, and experiences. So when we built this search, we didn't just build it for hotel companies. We didn't just build it for airlines. We didn't just build it for experience providers. We didn't just build it for one of our first partners was the government of Singapore, right? We didn't build it specifically for them. We really built it to answer the questions that someone would have. And because the questions that people have contain all of these attributes, from the very beginning, the tool's been designed to really listen to the person, to take a deeply personal question from them and return a deeply personal answer. And the thing that makes the platform we've built unusual or special is that we've really come at the problem from two sides, from the customer side and then from the B2B side, right? How do we provide all of the tooling so our airline partners, our hotel partners, our tour operator partners, they can really use the technology to deliver value to their customers. So we're excited to share today that TUI is going live with the platform and the technology with really truly experience-led search. If any of you were at the many Peters talks in the last couple days here at ITB, you would have heard them all talk about the importance of the guest really being able to describe what they're looking for, what they want, and being able to deliver a deeply personal answer. We're really proud to be working with them. It's an incredible team. They've been an incredible partner. So thank you. I think we'd love to take a couple questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anna. Thanks a lot, Harriet. I don't know if there are questions from the audience. We can give it a try, but a question from my side. You know these products pretty well, just because you aggregated quite a lot of product data. How do you know the customer? We have such a wide bunch of customer data profiles. Oh, it's yours, by the way. Yeah, I have my own one. So, we have the mid-office systems, we have CRM systems. Are you connected with them, or are you building up your own customer profiles?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think one of the largest mistakes that people have made in travel is trying to use historical data to guess who the person is, right? I think all of us have a couple attributes. We call them our blue hair attributes, like the things that are hard to guess. Once you know them, they're really powerful. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, you can use, in some cases, historical data to find that information. But I think travel is different than almost all forms of e-commerce, mm-hmm. in that who we are depends on where we're going. Are we going to a place where we feel comfortable, that's familiar? Are we going somewhere we've never been before? Is Harriet going with her kids? Am I going with my partner? Am I going for work? Am I going for fun? You know, so for us, we really think actually about customer data as being information that if you've done a good job in designing the digital experience, the customer tells you in the context of that search, right? And that's the power of natural language search. You no longer need to guess who the person is. You don't need to try to read through all your cookie data on them for the history of all time and like every search they've ever made. They've given you the most relevant information, and when you cross that with the business rules or business goals you have, and with the world data, the state of the world when that person is looking to travel, you have something really magical and quite different than anything that's been delivered to this point.
Okay. Is there any questions from you guys? There's one, indeed.
Hi. It's weird hearing yourself, I guess. Thank you for the really thorough presentation. My question is, like, we're a deep tech company working on a voice language model, and we were wondering your insight about when you predict the tech industry would be ready to graduate themselves from just using text to communicate with users and graduate themselves to actually use natural language voice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that users are being trained by a lot of the big tech companies, right? I spent 12 and a half years at Google. If you look at what the Google search results looked like 12 years ago, even what they looked like a year ago versus what they looked like now, they're changing, and people are expecting to be able to ask these more personalized questions and get more summarized, relevant answers. And so I think that you're actually going to see it change relatively quickly. As Anna said, though, right, like your primary home.com, though, is a fairly sacred space. And, you know, many people at many companies have spent years and years of effort to finely tune and optimize it. And so it's really trying to figure out how do you give them another way to say yes, another way to find something that people find a delightful experience without putting at risk the core search thing that they have spent so much time doing. So I think that the space is going to change relatively quickly. I think almost every partner that we have talked to, it's not an if, it's a when. I think that they assume that like this is going to be something they have to do, but getting it right is hard. And so I think that that's where we have spent a lot of time, is how do we help them get it right from the first go? And especially, I think, you know, anybody who's, you know, working in AI, everybody wants to ask about, well, what is the ROI of investing in this, right? And so helping them prove that business case fairly early is really, really important for adoption.
Yeah, and then to answer the question that you asked about natural language, one of the things that we've heard, so we use this technology both in a B2B2C context and also in a call center context. And in the call center context, I can't think of a customer that doesn't want to go straight from voice to results. When we think about this style of search, we'd expect relatively soon, probably, I don't know, within 1 to 2 years, it's not quite as strong a pull. You'd be able to drag and drop a set of imagery to get the result. You'd be able to just pick up your phone and talk to it for a minute or two about what you want and get the result, or you'd be able to use text. So it sounds like you're working in a great space.
Thanks a lot.
I take this one. You take the microphone. I say a big thank you to Anna, to Harriet. Intent-driven search. Thank you.
Thank you.